tough time. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Let's get started. Welcome to the South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource. We are hosting this webinar. I'm Sean Auckland, Local Government Program Manager at SPEAR, and I'll be moderating this webinar. It's Embracing Blockchain with Sustainability in Mind. A little bit about our organization. SPEAR is one of the 6 regional energy efficiency nonprofit organizations in the United States. And our mission is to accelerate the adoption of advanced building systems and energy efficient products and services in South Central United States. So our work covers policy and building codes, health performance buildings, local government. Our members range from advocacy organizations, cities, energy service company and organizations, manufacturers, trade associations, and utilities. When I say local governments, this event is part of the City Efficiency Leadership Council. And for those of you who are less familiar with the program, the City Efficiency Leadership Council is a partnership program with the State Energy Conservation Office to support outreach and education focused programming and the energy management sector for Texas and Oklahoma. City's in the title, but we offer these resources and conversations to all public sector entities, including counties, universities, and school districts. And a few announcements I wanted to talk a little bit about is we're offering continuing education units today. So you must fill out the survey to receive the continuing CEU. But if you're calling in, please put your phone number in the survey so we can match your name with the phone number. Otherwise, we're not able to give you the CEU. And you have to be present here and watching and participating in the webinar. You can't watch the video later to receive a CEU for this event. And then also just upcoming events. So we have quite a few in October, and I'm pretty excited about them. We're having a partnership with the City of Austin Water Utility. The presenter is Heather Drapool, Austin's Water Climate Protection Consultant. And that's going to be on October 21st, November 4th, and November 18th. And we have it portioned into 3 different regions, North, South, and Central. But if you're unable to attend your region, you can sign up for any of those dates. But she's going to be talking about strategies for adapting to a changing climate together. And the talk's going to highlight a new report, Leading Practices in Climate Adaptation, from the Water Utility Climate Alliance, a leader in climate adaptation for over a decade. And they have a suite of practical and tested actions and examples. So pretty excited about partnering with them. What's important with SPEAR is getting resources out. And whenever you are creating something for climate action, you need to have benchmark and an understanding of your energy and water consumption. Also on the October 28th, we're going to have another webinar on It's Baked In, Keeping the Lights On During Extreme Weather Events. And that is with Gavin Dillingham, who is the director of the United States Department of Energy South Central CHPTAP organization. And he's going to be talking about just with microgrids, with combined heat and power, they can decrease the likelihood of power outages, and just having a discussion on what the resources are available, support the development of your own critical infrastructure of a microgrid, and the best practices to make sure that you're getting the best on-site generation for your needs. And then on December 9th, we're going to have a workshop. I'm partnering with the Council of Governments for Capital Area Council of Governments. And we are going to talk about, the workshop's going to focus on we're having a panel of who's reported previously with for the State Energy Conservation Office, their reporting requirements. And then we're also going to have someone from the State Energy Conservation Office to talk Initially, there'll be breakout sessions, and we'll also address discussions and concerns about how you go through the process of reporting and what your needs will be. And last, I already put it in the chat box, but we'll have a feedback survey, and please answer all the questions. And there was a couple of questions too that Dr. Zong was interested in having answers. So we'd love feedback, and that's how we improve these webinars and also get some great ideas. So with the chat box, feel free to, you are muted as an attendee, but you can raise your hand or send comments and questions in the chat feature, and we can address them at the end. You can also use the question answer feature. And once we answer the questions, your question will be posted to everyone for them to see. And we'll be answering all questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so without a further ado, I am very excited about our presenter. I reached out to him after a couple of recent articles that came out in the news about what's going on in the state of Texas, but also in the world. And Dr. Zileng Zong is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science at Texas State University. His research focuses on green computing and energy efficient systems. He's a general member of the Green Software Foundation and associate editor of the Journal of Sustainable Computing. He has also successfully led several NSF projects in green computing research and platforms his teams developed, which is Green Code and Green Soft. Has been widely used by researchers and educators from US, Europe, Asia, and South America. Dr. Zong has received several institutional grants from IBM. You're going to have to correct me, Dr. Zong, if I'm pronouncing this right, Nvidia, and Accenture, and is actively collaborating with industry on research in green cloud, green AI, and then green blockchain and green software design. So welcome, Dr. Zong. I'm excited to see your presentation. You want to go ahead and load it up? I'll stop.
Right. So let me share my screen.
Okay, one more time. So we'll just see your presentation mode.
Okay, so
and then your display saving.
Does this work?
That's perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay.
I'm going to mute myself.
All right. First of all, Sean, thanks for the nice introduction. And I also want to thank everybody for your time to attend this talk. Today, I'm going to share some of my thoughts about embracing blockchain with sustainability in mind. My name is Zileng Zong. I'm associate professor from Computer Science Department at Texas State University, which is located in San Marcos, actually. So this is the outline of my talk. First, I would like to give a brief introduction about the terminologies and also the blockchain in general, and some definition about the virtual currency. And also, I'm going to talk about the Texas Virtual Currency Bill that was recently passed. And then I will talk about energy and efficiency issues of blockchain. And after that, I will talk about how does blockchain work. And then when we talk about how does blockchain work is to help the audience to understand why blockchain technology is energy hungry. And also, I will discuss several other important factors that affect blockchain sustainability that was not that commonly discussed in the public domain. So then last but not least, I will briefly talk about some research ideas that might be able to improve the sustainability of the blockchain. Okay. So first, what is the blockchain? I think the audience must know that everybody has heard about the blockchain. So essentially, blockchain is just a distributed ledger system. And then that is a very important invention, actually, from the last 500 years, because before the ledger system was just centralized. And then this is the first decentralized and distributed ledger system. So its main contribution is it solves the trust problem between people, government, and companies through decentralization. So we need a centralized ledger system because we have to do the transactions through them because of the trust issues between people and things. But with the blockchain, that trust problem is solved. And it is anonymous. That is another important feature because the user want to protect their privacy. And then every transaction in the blockchain is open and transparent. and that's important. And also every transaction is reversible. That's also very important because if you can change the record, then no one will trust that, right? It's immutable. That immutability ensures that the fairness of transactions, because no one can change that theoretically, but it's still possible you can change that, but it's very hard, I would say. Okay, so the definition about the virtual currency. So the term of virtual currency was first used by the European Central Bank in 2012. I quote, this is the definition for their virtual currency. Definitions like digital money in an unregulated environment issued and controlled by its developers and used as a payment method among members of a specific virtual community. So there are important things in this definition. First of all, it's issued by private organizations. It's not by a central bank. It's not by a government. It's by the private organizations or group of developers. Usually we refer to this as the blockchain community. We have many blockchain communities, so they can issue the virtual currencies for their community. And the other important feature about virtual currency is they're mostly unregulated because they don't have the central bank or the government support at the back end. So all virtual currencies are digital currencies. You also heard about the other word called digital currencies, right? Digital currencies is different with virtual currencies because digital currencies can be supported by the government or central bank. Like China is issuing its own digital currency, but the opposite is not true, right? All virtual currencies are digital currencies, but all digital currencies, you cannot say all digital currencies are virtual currencies. Some digital currencies are backed up by the central government or the central bank. So the Bitcoin, the Ethereum we talk about, the cryptocurrencies, they are considered as virtual currencies, not digital, because they are issued by the private organizations or the community. Okay, so today's virtual currencies, I just checked on the Coin 360. So this is the price of today's virtual currencies. Currently, we have over 4,000 virtual currencies. Some of them are very successful, like the Bitcoin. You can see the price is very high. And second by the ETH, the Ethereum. And then the third one is the Solana on this one. And you can see there are many small blocks that are representing different, small virtual currency communities, but they're there. They're not just like, the top side yet. Okay, so the Texas House Bill 4474, this is the big event for the blockchain community. So, many different governments, they take different positions towards the virtual currency support. Even within the United States, different states have different state policies on that. So Texas, is actually passing this bill. This bill was passed in May 2021, effective September 2021, just last month. And then it recognizes cryptocurrency and other blockchain-based virtual currencies in its uniform commercial code. This is very important because this set the foundation for the wider usage of virtual currencies in Texas. Texas is the second largest economy, so this is very important for that. And then Governor Abbott calls it a master plan, this bill, master plan for Texas to be involved in blockchain industry. So without doubt, I think Texas is going to fully embrace virtual currencies with this bill. And then I think there will be amended bills in the future to pass this, but this set a very, very solid foundation for the future amendment on that. Texas aims to become a leader in blockchain innovation by attracting more venture capital and entrepreneurs. I heard that some startup blockchain companies or big companies in blockchain are moving to Texas, to Austin actually. So with this bill passed, I think that Texas will be one of the most important hubs, if not the center of blockchain technology. And then the impact of that bill actually is huge, right? And then that one is just one factor affects where the miners will move. And also this is also affected by other governments policies. For example, China issued a big ban for all the cryptocurrency mining this year, and then this has forced the Bitcoin mining facilities and miners moving into other countries like Russia or the US. And then many actually have landed on Texas. So the BBC has a recent news on that published. I put a link here. So like the Chinese company like Bitcoin, Shenzhen-based the BIT Mining, and they also the Beijing-based Bitmain. So those are two large Bitcoin mining companies, and then they are either planning to building large facilities in Texas or already building large ones in Rockdale, Texas. So we're going to focus on the Rockdale because this is the largest mining facility right now is under construction, and then in Texas. So I put a map here. So I live in Austin, and then the Rockdale is just like 60 miles northeast of Austin. So that's very close to Austin actually. And then it's about 1 hour driving there. And then this is the largest on mining facilities under construction in Rockdale, Texas. You can see there's a huge power grid to power that facility. And then we recently have a very good report on the largest Bitcoin mines in the US. It's in Rockdale. So this is a YouTube video, and then I'm going to play the video. So this video talks a lot of things that I'm going to talk about in the later slides. Then also, gave a brief introduction about blockchain technology, and then energy consumption for that. And then hopefully this video will set up a good
Bitcoin hit $1 trillion market cap this year. This has inspired some Bitcoin operations to expand, especially in the wake of the recent government crackdown of miners in China.
The ban on mining in China has caused a mass exodus to the United States, to Russia, and to any other areas where mining facilities are available.
Welcome to Rockdale, Texas, America's new crypto mining hub.
This building that's directly behind me, inside of the buildings, we have this shelving that's 1,000 feet long, 20 feet tall, and there are just miner after miner after miner after miner.
We went inside North America's largest Bitcoin mine to understand how it works and its energy footprint.
What is a miner? It is a small computer. They call it an ASIC miner. It is made to solve problems, and when they solve that problem, it feeds into the Bitcoin network. When it feeds into the Bitcoin network, you receive a reward.
To help us understand crypto's reward system a little better, we spoke to blockchain expert Bettina Warburg.
That's what mining is. It's a process by which people are contributing computing power and earning a reward for essentially participating in this process that secures a network. Everybody's using the same software that allows them to connect together and participate in a governance structure that's shared.
It seemed like only yesterday that one person with a handful of computers crunching numbers in their apartment could make money from mining Bitcoin. So how do we go from there to here?
Just like with many industries, you start small. The guy in the garage started the process. He mined Bitcoin. I believe the reward was around 50 Bitcoin for every block reward. Now it is at 6.25.
In some ways, cost equals energy expenditure. This is just the nature of technology. We see updates and innovation and people driving margin and driving their cost of operation down in order to reap the greatest reward. So you get mining operations that happen in places where power is less expensive.
Typically, mining operations go where energy is cheap. Right now, Texas has some of the lowest kilowatt-hour prices in America. That's due in part to a deregulated energy market, which means several providers compete to snag big customers like Windstone.
So there's environments like Iceland, Russia, China, Canada. Areas like Iceland and Canada have a cooler environment. There's probably less dust in those areas. The miners run at a cooler temperature.
Cryptocurrency is about the low-cost provider. Texas is becoming a hotbed for other cryptocurrency facilities.
In fact, Shenzhen-based Bitmining is coming to Texas, and Beijing-based Bitmain, a company that designs circuit chips for Bitcoin mining, is moving into the decaying aluminum plant down the road from Windstone. According to the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education, $1 worth of Bitcoin takes 17 megajoules of energy to mine. That's more than double the amount of energy it took back in the day to mine $1 worth of copper, gold, and platinum.
The machines require more power, and more power requires larger capacity, bigger transformers, higher voltage.
Ultimately, the energy intensiveness comes from the fact that solving these mathematical puzzles is challenging, and you have to expend a certain amount of compute power against it to be the fastest one to actually solve the puzzle. And putting as much computational energy into that challenge as possible increases your ability to actually win. It's intentionally inefficient.
Each building is 100 megawatts. For each 100 megawatt building, you can fit 30,000 new ASIC miners in it. In a Bitcoin mine, the consumption is basically taken by the miners. Each miner has about 3,000 watts that it's pulling. An older miner, an older generation, the S9, which was released in September 2017, was only pulling 1,350. The miners now are at 3,000.
So at capacity, this facility will have 750 megawatts of electricity flowing through it, enough to power 150,000 Texas homes during peak demand. That's a lot of juice. How do they manage to keep all those miners cool?
Our ideal goal is to keep the ambient temperature around 81 degrees. There's a lake about a mile from here, and so underground we have a 8-inch line with 1,000 GPM pump where we pump literally the water through this mile-long pipe into the facility, and it actually goes into holding tanks that then recirculate the water, and it pumps it back into these evaporative cooling walls that are 12 feet tall. Water is actually dripping down the wall of that evaporative cooling cell, and then as the air comes through it, it actually cools from 16 to 20 degrees difference between the front of the wall and the inside of the wall. The miners have fans, they have intake fans, and there's thousands of those fans running, and they actually suck the ambient air through the miner, and then there's an exhaust fan. It actually pushes the air through the chips and into the heat aisle. As it goes through the miner, it then heats up because the chips, it's a processing, so it gets really hot, and then we capture the heat on the inside of the heat wall, and then it is evacuated out of the building through a quote-unquote chimney-like environment.
Inside the heat aisle, it literally feels like an oven. One Windstone employee estimates that it can get as hot as 140 degrees Fahrenheit in here.
So the S9 has a hash rate of 13.5 terahash. The new S19s are 110 terahash.
Hash rate measures how many computations a miner can do, usually in a second. So how much money can each miner potentially make each day?
Currently, a S19 with 110 terahash, the profitability every day for one machine is 30 USD.
Okay, so $30 times 30,000 miners times 2 big buildings, nearly $2 million a day for a facility this size.
We have a full staff of 120 employees. We work 24 hours a day, 3 shifts.
There are definitely some increased efficiencies on the horizon, such as faster processing chips for the miners, cooling them in immersion technology, but at approximately 73 terawatt hours annually, Bitcoin's energy consumption is more than the energy it takes to run every single television set in America.
I think ultimately the energy consumption question is a bit of a, what is it relative to? When we look at our financial system as a whole, or even just Wall Street, to power Wall Street, which runs almost entirely off of computation today anyway, and high frequency trading algorithms. When you look at mining just to earn Bitcoin, well, that's not necessarily so awesome.
According to the Digiconomist's Bitcoin Energy Consumption Index, one Bitcoin transaction takes more than 1,500 kilowatt hours to complete. That's more than 50 days of power for the average US household.
Bitcoin is what I like to think of as a calculator. So it's this sort of old school, very clunky system that gets the job done. When you look at what's happened with newer blockchains like Ethereum 2 and Definity, is that they've actually implemented a totally different system for essentially doing the same thing. And Ethereum is upgrading to a more energy efficient way of securing the network. And the future will be about a lot of these different internet computers battling it out for adoption. So you'll see Dfinity, Near, Flow, Polkadot, all kinds of networks really serving as the optimized internet computers. Ultimately, the value will come from the amount of applications and tools and things that you can build and do on top of this computing architecture. You know, I think all technology creates energy consumption in certain patterns, and ultimately what we have to do is make sure that what we're building is something that's worthwhile and that we actually want in our society.
All right, so this video has a lot of information on that. So we're going to break down some of the information in my slides. So the first thing I want to mention about in this video, they mentioned the huge energy consumption about this mining facility, right? So I want to give the audience some ideas about how big that power budget is. So like in the video, I mentioned the power budget planned mining facility in Rockdale is 750 megawatts. And then, so I put the total power consumption on the fastest 10 supercomputers in the world. So this list is coming from top 500. And then when they're running at a peak performance using a benchmark called LanePack, and then that means this is the highest power they can achieve and the highest performance they can achieve. If you add all these top 10 supercomputers together, so their total power consumption is less than 100 megawatts. So just imagine this, if we have Rockdale like 750 megawatts, that means you move all the top 10 fastest supercomputers in the world all to Rockdale in that small city, and then they only consume less than 1/7 of the power of the mining facility. So this is one. The other one is from the latest report from University Cambridge. It shows that the energy consumption of Bitcoin, has exceeded the country Argentina. So this is, I think, ranked the 30th on that one. So if you see all these big energy consumption countries like China, USA, India on that, so Bitcoin is, if that can be ranked by itself, it's number 30. And then I think for the Ethereum energy consumption, you can see recently, because the popularity of Ethereum increased so quickly, and then the energy consumption of ETH is ranked as 39, number 39 as a country, if that can be ranked as a country. So it consumes more energy than the Bangladesh. So the other important thing mentioned by the Secretary of Treasury, Ms. Yellen, is the extreme inefficiency in terms of Bitcoin transaction. So I pulled some of the data from the Digiconomist website. So I'm going to explain some of them. And then first of all, the carbon footprint is very high, 848 kilograms CO2 for each Bitcoin transaction. And then in the video, it mentioned that every Bitcoin transaction consumes more than 1,500 kilowatts hour, right? So that's what's that in the video. And then this data shows it's like 1785 kilowatts hour. On that, this is a, this is the power consumption of an average U.S. household over 2 months, basically. And then also it has the electric waste. We can talk about this. What's the electric waste mean? So that's called electric waste and also embodied carbon. So we're going to introduce that later on. So in the video it mentioned that it's actually if you try to mine 1 Bitcoin and then versus you mine the same value of gold, and then the energy the CO2 footprint, right? It's 10 times if you look at this data. So 10 times more than mining the same amount of gold that worth the same amount of Bitcoin, right? And then the efficiency issue is like this one. So 1 Bitcoin transaction is equivalent to over 1.2 million Visa transactions on this one. So in terms of energy consumption, it's more than like 1.9 million almost CO2 emission compared with the Visa transaction. So this all indicates the inefficiency of the Bitcoin transaction. All right, so now we have talked about in this video the huge energy consumption of that, and then what I want to do next is to briefly talk about how does the blockchain work, because once you understand how the blockchain works, and then it will help you understand like how does the why that's so energy hungry, right? So the blockchain basically is a consensus system. So it's trying to reach consensus among all these distributed miners and then everybody stakeholders in this community, right? So there are two consensus that need to be achieved. The first one is how virtual currencies are generated. So different virtual currency community, they have different policies on that. That was determined at the time. Actually, you create a virtual currency, and then you need to tell the community how the virtual currencies will be generated. Is there a maximum, or there's no limit on that? So, for Bitcoin, so all the Bitcoin are generated by mining rewards. So this figure shows you that, in 2009 when Bitcoin was first introduced, it's like every block you added to the chain, you got a reward of 50 Bitcoins. And then every 4 years, and then that reward halves on that. So since it halves and it follows a certain pattern, we can calculate that BTC is capped to 21 million. So that's the maximum amount of Bitcoin you can get to this one. Okay. However, ETH is using a different strategy, right? So Ethereum, when they release the ETH, and then the ETH are generated by multiple ways, by pre-mining and by pre-sale, and also the rewards. So the pre-mining means that, those are the ETH reserved for the developers who wanted to contribute to this development of the consensus protocols, writing the code, improve the ETH Ethereum community. So they got some pre-mining rewards for that. So they don't actually have to mine, but because of the contribution, so there's some ETH are reserved for them. Also pre-sale. Pre-sale is for investors, right? If you believe ETH has a very promising future, you can buy things ahead of time, and then the money for pre-sale will be used to make investment on the ETH community or Ethereum community development on that. And then, of course, the other part is rewards, right? So this rewards is not kind of like the mining rewards, because the ETH 2.0, they're using the power stake. So we'll talk about that in later slides. And there's no limit on the ETH. So it's not like the Bitcoin. Okay. So the second consensus, this is the very important one, is like how to maintain the consistency of a distributed ledger system. When you have so many people all over the world trying to update this blockchain, and then the consistency, how do we guarantee the consistency of that ledger system? So to guarantee that is very important at a specific time. We try to pick a winner. That winner is eligible to update the blockchain. So that means you can add a block to that. So it's the consensus about like how do we find the winner, and then how does the winner can update the blockchain, right? So here, this figure shows you the mining puzzle, and then the winner, in order to be the winner, you have to solve a complex mining puzzle on that. And then what is the mining puzzle? So the mining puzzle in the blockchain, in the Bitcoin, is SHA 256, so secure hash algorithm. So this algorithm takes input and then generates a binary number that has 256 bits. And then since each bit can be 0 and 1, as you can see, the search space is is huge, right? It's 2 to the power of 256. It's a huge space. And then you just make basically random guess into this. And then if your guess is within the range of the expected output, and then you will be claimed as the winner. And then you can add a chain, you can add a block to the chain. And then among these 256, how does the mining difficulty is controlled? It can be controlled by nonce. So nonce is the first n bits in this 256 bits. And then when that number of bits can be set to be a certain range, for example, if the first 70 or 50 nonce set to be, it has to be 0 or something like that, and then this number falls below a certain threshold, so then that is the range, right? So if you want to increase the difficulty, you just want to make the range smaller so that it's hard to guess. So that is the basic idea about the mining puzzle, and then who will be the winner on that. Okay, so Bitcoin does this consensus through proof of work. So in the proof of work consensus mechanism, the miners just race to be the first to solve the mining puzzle, like I mentioned, and then trying to guess right. And then once you get less than the, meet the requirement of the range requirement, and then you can claim yourself as the winner. And then you can update the blockchain with the latest verified transactions, and then you got a reward, right? So based on the current reward program in the blockchain, right now it's 6.25, I believe, Bitcoins for each block we add in. And then for the power, for the proof of work, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they actually both use proof of work, and Ethereum 1.0 use proof of work. They're trying to, migrate to proof of stake at this moment. And then their proof of work algorithms are different because the Bitcoin proof of work is computation intensive, and Ethereum improves the, Bitcoin's proof of work, and by making that both computation and memory intensive. So I'm going to explain what's the difference on that. So first, let's talk about Bitcoin proof of work, right? So Bitcoin proof of work, just like you can think about a lot of miners and trying to solve the puzzle, right? So they're trying to guess the right number that meet the range requirement. And then if so many guesses are being done, and if it can parallelize this guessing game, then they will increase their chance. So basically, the more guesses you can make per time unit, and then the more likelihood you can guess right, and that can increase your possibility to be as the winner. So you can get a reward, you can add a block to the chain, right? So then essentially the Bitcoin proof of work mechanism is just computation intensive. So that means we can easily accelerate that process by parallelization. So in fact, actually, it's very hard if you want to mine the Bitcoin without the ASIC mining machines. ASIC stands for application specific integrated circuit in that. And then this map, this figure shows basically the timeline when the community move to different hardware. You can see this evolvement happens very quickly. In 2009, people are still using CPU to mine the Bitcoins. But in 2010, CPU is not fast enough, so they are moving to the GPUs. In 2011, they're using FPGAs, an array of FPGAs. And 2012, it's ASIC. So in a video, they mentioned that 2021, so the latest ASIC machines for Bitcoins consume like 3 kilowatt hours, right? So that's 3,000 kilowatt hours, sorry. So that's the power in that. So the difficulty, right? So when we adjust the difficulty of the Bitcoin per work, so it's based on every 2016 blocks. So if you do the calculation, right? So the target block time of Bitcoin is 10 minutes. So if you every 10 minutes we generate a new block, and then every 2016 blocks. So if you do 2016 block multiplied by 10 minutes, this is how many minutes, accepted minutes, and then to generate the previous 2016 blocks. If you divide it by 24 hours per day and 60 minutes per hour, so that's roughly to 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks we will generate 2016 blocks. Then the blockchain, the proof of work, the mining difficulty algorithm is going to check the actual time generated the previous 2016 blocks versus the expected time. The expected time is going to be 2 weeks. So if the actual time of generating that latest 2016 blocks is less than 2 weeks, then the mining difficulty will be increased. Okay. So how is that increased? It's going to by adjusting the nonce. So if you keep recall how this works, if I make more of this, you have to, let's see, the first 70, right, to be zeros. Now you have to make that 71, 72. So it's the difficulty is growing exponentially on that, right? Because it's a power function. It grows very quickly in this one. So this leads to the problem of the energy hungry, right? So when more machines join the mining, so the mining difficulty will increase to ensure target block time is around 10 minutes, right? Because every block has to be generated in 10 minutes when more people are trying to mining. So that means more guesses per unit time. Then we don't have to make the guess harder by adjusting the nonce. So that's why when more Bitcoin miners join and more energy needs to be consumed to mine a single Bitcoin. So this figure shows the hash rate, right? In the video, I mentioned about the hash rate. So the hash rate indicates you know, how many the computation power basically are consumed for just mining the Bitcoins. So this is the all-time hash rate for for Bitcoin. So you can see at the beginning, it's very small, right? So however, once the Bitcoin price started to increase and getting more popular, and then the mining power, you can see the computation power is increasing exponentially like this. So you see a sudden drop here this year. This is in the summer around 2021. This is when the Chinese government banned all the cryptocurrency mining in China. So they have to shut down all the mining facilities in China. So that caused a huge drop in the hash rate on that. And then, but it climbs back very quickly because they're finding new places like Texas or Russia and Canada. So they're moving all the mining facilities overseas. Then that's how you know, the hash rate is increased quickly after that. Okay, so then the Ethereum, so the proof of work algorithm, you know, consensus mechanism is different with the Bitcoin one, because the Bitcoin one has a major weakness because it is not ASIC resistant. So that means when people are using this ASIC to do that, and then you know, it's like in order to participate in this game, you have to buy this expensive machine. You have to hold large, you know, mining facilities in order to, you know, to be a winner on this one. So the Ethereum, when they trying to develop their version of proof of work, they try to make this ASIC resistant. So that means it's not ASIC friendly. So how to make that ASIC is friendly? Because, you know, for Bitcoin proof of work, since it is just a computation intensive, I can easily parallelize that. I can, you know, I'm not sure it's like hardware, how much you know about that. And then on the CPU is a general purpose, a lot of control unit, a lot of a double, you know, the high precision double precision calculations, floating point calculations. That's not needed actually for the Bitcoin mining. So they can get rid of all this control. They can get rid of all these floating point calculation unit, and then just focusing on the parallelization and putting many cores that can just do the hash function very well. And then does not require a lot of memory allocation, so you don't have to worry about the memory bandwidth about that. So that's what caused the ASIC dominating the Bitcoin mining. And then Ethereum is trying to solve this problem by making their algorithm, proof of work algorithm, kind of like both computation intensive and memory intensive. You still need to have to do a lot of SHA, the hashing function. You still have to do that, but on top of that, you'd have to you know, rely heavily on the memory operations. So basically, the idea is, I'm not going to show you the code or something like this. This is the idea, right? They have a smaller array that's about 60 megabytes. So that one can be stored in the cache, and then they have a big array. So this one must be in the memory, and this is called a DAG. So the DAG is a large array into that. So they have some mixing functions. They randomly generate some of the numbers about this, and then randomly run this, you know, kind of like a mix function. So all these numbers in the DAG function is generated from this small array, right? So they can look at this DAG as a big array in a memory, and then this is the small array in the cache. So every single values in the DAG is generated from this smaller array stored in the cache through multiple mixing functions to do that. So that means if you want to win, to, you know, guess right on about this one, you have to store this big array in the DAG, and also you would have to store this small array in this if you want to do solve the mining puzzle in this one. So by doing this, and then the ASIC is not that friendly to ASIC, because to develop the ASIC with memory intensive applications, you have to put in a lot of investment in that. It's not as easy as just putting more cores. So that's the difference between the ETH proof of work algorithm versus the Bitcoin one. Okay, so so the ETH is they call this algorithm the ETH hash. So how does the ETH adjust the mining difficulty is different from the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin adjusting the mining difficulty for every 2016 blocks, but the ETH hash, they justify the mining difficulty every block, not every 2016 blocks, every block. And then target block time is no longer 40, it's no longer 10 minutes, it's 15 seconds. So 15 seconds, and you can see which is 40 times faster than the Bitcoin. Okay, but because of this change, they would have to make a lot of new arrangement in the ETH algorithm. For example, like how do you get a reward to the anchor block? I don't have time to explain all the details about that, but you can tell, you know, like ETH is trying to address two problems, and then the ASIC mining problem of the Bitcoin, also the bandwidth problem of the Bitcoin transaction. The Bitcoin transaction can only do like the single digit every per second, single digit level. And then the you know, the ETH version 1 proof of work can do like 30 transactions per second, and the ETH2, if you move to the proof of stake, they say that it's going to be 100,000 transactions, but we'll see, depending on, you know, they haven't really implemented that yet. Okay, and so the way it works is there is a complicated equation on this, but to put this in simple, the current block, you know, you compare the current block with the previous block. The previous block is called the parent block. So if this block is, you know, generated, the current block is generated within 1 second to 8 seconds. Recall that the target block time is 15 seconds, right? So that means you generate this block too quickly. So then the mining difficulty will be increased by 1 unit. If it's generated within 9 seconds to 17 seconds, that's considered within the range of 15 seconds. So the current mining difficulty will remain the same. However, if this block, you know, is generated 18 seconds to 26 seconds, so that's too long, right? So you're going to decrease the mining difficulty by 1 unit. So this is how you increase and decrease or maintain the same level of mining difficulty in the ETH algorithm. This is still proof of work. Okay. And then the other unique feature about the ETH mining difficulty is they have this called difficulty bomb, which is this ePSIM here. So the difficulty bomb is used to support the future transition to proof of stake. So the ePSIM here is small when the number of blocks is small. So for example, ETH, when it's the Ethereum is just getting started, and then the number of blocks is smaller than this one. So this the impact of this difficulty bomb could be ignored because they're not going to affect difficulty, mining difficulty too much about this. And also we have the D0, that's the minimum mining difficulty. This is the number in the code to decide that. And then, however, when the number of Ethereum blocks increase quickly, the impact of this difficulty bomb is getting larger and larger. So I want to show you, this is the case, right? So you can see this is around somewhere in 2008, 2017, 2018. So you can see the Ethereum average block time is increasing exponentially. So this is because the number of blocks is increasing quickly, and then the difficulty bomb is having a larger and larger impact into the mining difficulty. So then you can see this mining difficulty is no longer 15 seconds, much longer than that. So that's not acceptable. But originally, the Ethereum trying to have this is purposely designed because they're thinking, you know, at this time, around 2018, probably we are ready to migrate to the proof of stake. But unfortunately, proof of stake is more complicated than they originally thought. So the new consensus mechanism is not readily available for, you know, the community to use. But the difficulty bomb has increased the block time so much, then they would have to drop that. So that's what we call rollback 3 million blocks. So they have to roll back 3 million blocks to reduce the mining difficulty. That is a sudden drop here. What happened there, right? So then the ETH 2.0, so is proof of stake. So proof of stake is different with proof of work because the biggest concern for proof of work is the huge energy consumption on that. So we talk about, you know, the more miners joining in, you know, to mine the same thing, to be the winner, you have to consume more energy to mine the same amount of virtual currencies, right? No matter it's ETH or Bitcoin. And for proof of stake, we don't have to do actually the physical mining. So that's why proof of stake sometimes is called virtual mining. So the idea is simple, right? So if you think about proof of work, how to be the winner, right? So you have to spend a lot of money to buy these expensive ASIC machines, right? When you have the ASIC mining machines, and they're very powerful, so they can do more guesses per time unit, and then that increases your chance to be the winner. And then that becomes the game of who has more money to buy more ASIC mining machines, right? If you have more money to buy that, you more likely to get a reward, right? So you get more. So then we would have to consume a lot of electricity and power to do that. So why don't we just depend on like how much money you have originally, right? If you have money originally, then we increase you. So that means you have more stake in this virtual currency community. And then through the proof of stake, then we don't have to do the physical mining. We can do the virtual mining. So the virtual mining means that you can serve as a validators if you have a lot of stake in this virtual currency community, and you can serve as the validators. And then the validators can decide, vote, right? Basically vote on who, which block is the valid block to be added to the chain. And then that's kind of like you vote on who is the winner. And then, then you get some rewards through this validation process. So the proof of stake blockchain selects a winner based on the amount of crypto each validator has in the pool and the length of time they have had it there. So that means, to validate, you have to put in some deposit into this that shows that you have stake into this virtual currency, and then the amount of currencies you put in, and decides on the weight you have on the vote. Okay. All right. So now you can see this one, they have the 51%, right? So this is talking about the security of different consensus mechanism. For proof of work, like Bitcoin, in order to fork another chain, right? So that means if a hacker wants to hack this Bitcoin system, they would have to have more than 50, right? 51% of computation power in terms of hash rate in order to change the direction of, to decide who is the winner about that one or fork a different chain. So that is called 51% attack. But in the proof of stake, you don't have to have 51% of the computation power, but you do have to have 51% all the cryptocurrency on the network. So that's a different mechanism to ensure the security of the Bitcoin, the security of the blockchain. All right. So a quick recap here. We can see that it's the miner's natural interest to use the most energy efficient hardware. Like I mentioned, from CPU to GPU to FPGA to ASIC, right? So they are trying their best to do the most energy efficient way, because electricity bills are one of the largest bills for the miners. But they are not intended to use the cheapest electricity. They're intended to use the cheapest, but they're not intended to use the cleanest electricity, right? They don't care your electricity is dirty or sustainable energy. As long as your price is low, then they can increase their revenue for mining. And also, we talk about proof of work, and then proof of work and proof of stake. Those are software innovations. So software innovation is not easy, especially for blockchain. You can see proof of work consumes more energy, but they are more mature. They're more mature. So the Bitcoin has been like more than 10 years, so it's safe and mature. But the proof of stake avoids the actual mining. It's called the virtual mining. It can significantly reduce energy consumption, but it's less mature. So the Ethereum has postponed this kind of like many times for the transition from proof of work to proof of stake. As you can see, it's not that easy to do that. And also other virtual currencies like Solana, they are using a different set of consensus mechanism called proof of history. We don't have time to cover that today. That's a new consensus mechanism that's also efficient to that. And there are also other important factors, although these are having discussed, right? So in the community, but there are also other important factors that was not widely discussed I would like to mention today. The first one is called power usage effectiveness. So this idea was used to measure the energy efficiency of data centers like Google, Facebook, or Twitter. So they're data centers, right? So the idea of PUE is you have seen the video, right? So they have a huge facility. In that facility, there are two parts of the energy being consumed. Number one is the mining machines, right? They're doing the hash functions. They're doing all this calculation. So those are called equipment energy. And also there are cooling, right? So there are cooling, there are lighting, different facility required energy consumption. So they are also a big portion of this total energy consumption of the mining facility. So the PUE is the rate because the total energy divided by equipment energy. So if the PUE is 0.0. What that means is for every 1 watt of calculation you do, and then you have to consume 2 watts. So that means the other watts is spent or consumed by the facility or supporting equipment, like the cooling facility, right? The cooling equipment in the facility. So I introduced the PUE because the mining facility is very similar to the data centers. You can see the scale is even larger than some of the data centers. It's kind of like huge energy consumption on that. And then in the video, you also see they use the water cooling. They also mentioned the immersive cooling on that, but haven't done that yet. And then all these best practices in the data centers can be borrowed from, can be borrowed and applied to the blockchain mining facilities here. And then, for example, the managed airflow. So this one, and then in the video, they mentioned about the hot L and cold L, right? So the hot L is really, really hot. Like can go like 60 Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius, right? It's pretty hot. And then the idea is to separate the hot L. So you can see one is the hot L, and then the other one is the cold L. So by separating the hot air with the cold air, you don't mix them up, so you don't have to cool them again. So this will significantly increase your cooling efficiency in that. So manage airflow. And then the other one is adjust the thermostat and then the temperature. I think in the video they mentioned about 81. So 81 is a good starting point, and then the temperature can be set even higher, up to 85, so that the cooler don't have to run that hard, right? To do this, they use the air cooling and then to put all the air towards this water wall, right? So to use the water to cool the hot air. So that's what they did in the Rockdale facility. Okay. So the other one, this one is a common one, is like utilize the free cooling. So you don't have to build the water cooling on that. You just basically open your window and then take all the cold air in and then blow all the hot air out. So this is the commonly used technology for reducing PUE in cold places like Montana, like Canada, Russia. They can use this. So however, in Texas, we cannot leverage too much on free cooling because our air is hot, right? Especially in the summer, it's very hot. Then also the other one is optimize the power distribution of different things. I believe they have done that. And then that is because every time you convert the AC to DC, and then you lose some power in this conversion process. So you want to reduce the number of conversions in the intermediate steps. So that way you can reduce the electricity loss or the power loss during this process, right? So these are the commonly used PUE optimization techniques that can, some of that can be, leveraged by the Texas mining facilities here. And then this figure shows like by applying all of these, and Google actually has done a lot more than that. And then they use machine learning algorithm to control their data center facility, how to cool them in the best way. So they did much more than that. So with all these optimization, software, hardware, and all of these optimizations, you can see the Google's PUE has dropped every year, right? Has dropped every year. So you can see every year we have a peak, and then it drops, right? So this is kind of like a summer because the cooling takes, more power, and then you can see the PUE increases, and then in the winter you don't need that much of a the cooler runs less hotter, then you basically reduce the PUE, right? So, but overall you can see the trend. The red line shows the trend. So the PUE is being reduced over time. All right, the other thing we want to discuss is energy is one thing, but that energy is not directly related to the CO2 emission, although it is a seed for the CO2, how much energy determines like the electricity, right? But however, the grid emission intensity has a larger role in the CO2 emission. So the grid emission intensity is a scale. So that one is from Watt Time. So this is the company that varies that evaluates all the how dirty or clean the grid power is, right? So it gave the score between 1 and 100 relative to each location. So lower on the scale is the cleanest, this grid gas, and higher on the scale is the dirtiest, this grid gas. So I put some of the zip code from Texas. You can see in El Paso, that's West Texas, it's pretty good, 50, right? 50 on that. However, Austin is about 64. However, for Rockdale, this is where they build the large mining facilities. Their grid in emission intensity is 85. 85 means that 85% of the grid, the electricity that come from that grid are coming from the dirty energy, fossil fuel, not sustainable energy, not wind, not sun, not sustainable energy. So this one plays a major role because for the same amount of a kilowatt hour you consume, and then the higher the grid emission intensity is, the more CO2 emission you're going to have.
Dr. Zhang, we're coming up on the hour. This is such great information. Do you have a couple more slides just to finish up, or do you have something that you'd like to use to recap?
I think I'm quick, so almost done.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so the embodied carbon is like, this is another thing, like when the software, when you do the mining machines, those hardware, when you create those hardware, the carbon also happen, right? So you create the hardware by emit some of the carbons to the atmosphere. So you want to extend the lifetime of the carbon. So this is what we call the embodied carbon. That means the amount of carbon pollution emitted during the creation and disposal of a device. Okay. So how to improve the sustainability of the blockchain? So so a couple of things we can do: decrease the mining energy consumption via software and hardware optimization, decrease the PUE, use the utilities with low grid emission intensity, increase the lifetime of hardware to reduce the embodied carbon, and then create a metric, for example, the blockchain carbon intensity, to evaluate and regulate the carbon emissions for different blockchain mining facilities. Right, potential research, we can explore more efficient consensus algorithms. You can investigate what is the reasonable PUE, especially in Texas, right? It's hot, right? So what is the reasonably achievable PUE for Bitcoin mines in hot Texas? And also the big data analysis about impact of cryptocurrency mining to real-time electricity price and optimization power distribution in the grid. So this is also an important thing, I think, to minimize the impact of the cryptocurrency mining to the local power grid, and leverage renewable energy for mining. So those are the potential research topics on doing this, right? So this is the United Nations, ICPC, so the Climate Change Committee. So they warns that if the temperature increases by 1.5 degrees, so if we don't do anything, so by 2040 this will be increased by 1.5 degrees Celsius. This will cause a lot of issues for the environment. So global warming in this. And then I have a video. I'm not sure if we have a time to play, but I can answer your questions if you have anything. And then contact me if you want to, do the research collaboration with our lab, and then, to improve the sustainability of the blockchain technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zhang. Does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask? And this will also be on our YouTube channel, so I'll drop that into the chat. I did have a few questions. So Dr. Zhang, I'll just, because I don't see any right now in our question and answer. Let me double check.
Sean, could you speak a little bit loudly, because I barely can hear you?
Sure. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, great. I just was curious with Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency, you had demonstrated that even some of the largest data centers are more efficient. Do you know, with like the research, why do you think that they haven't really crossed those best management practices from data centers onto Bitcoin mining?
I think they are trying to.
Mm-hmm.
So they are trying to. So you can look at their cooling. The video shows that they are trying to apply the best practice on that. But difference would be some of the mining facilities, they are trying to leverage, abandoned factory, right? So abandoned factory, so they're not always in the modern data center building like Google or Facebook. So, and also in Texas, you can see we can now leverage the free cooling. So that means the cooling system need to work harder in Texas. So there are a lot of challenges in Texas. So that's why I think it's not like they don't want to reduce PUE. I think they want to reduce PUE because if they can reduce the PUE, that increase their revenue for mining, right? So they are all meant to do that. But I think what's lacking now is there is not ongoing research to study what is achievable as a reasonable PUE for blockchain mining, because there have been a lot of study on what is the achievable PUE for the modern data centers like Google, Facebook, a lot of studies on research on that. But for the blockchain PUE, what's a reasonable one? And then, Google can reach like 1.1 or lower, Facebook 1.1 or lower. But for the blockchain mining facility, we probably cannot require they kind of like get that low, right? But what is the achievable one, right? But we don't want the mining facility to get the PUE of 2.0 even higher, because they're going to double the amount of CO2 on that. So, a comprehensive study about the mining facilities in Texas will help the policymakers and then to make a reasonable regulation decision. Like at what point is reasonable? Like if your mining facility has too high of PUE, then you probably are not getting a license to run your mining facility, something like that.
Interesting. I was just looking at ERCOT, and they said at this time, the amount of megawatts for the grid demand, it was 51,378 megawatts. So it's really interesting. Thank you so much for your time today. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that the people who attended learned a lot from this as well. And I look forward to seeing if we have other opportunities for you to share your information. And thanks for all that you do for the state of Texas and green computing. It's a really interesting research that you provide to us.
All right, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Have a great day, and thank you all for joining us.